Toyota dealer. Coons Tyson's Toyota.
Tonight, Bill Cosby found guilty. And Cosby's outburst in court, the expletive, what he shouted at the DA. The comedian, now 80, convicted of drugging and sexually assaulting a woman. Other accusers breaking down in court. Could Cosby now spend the rest of his life in prison? President Trump's rant on live TV, now admitting Michael Cohen did represent him in the, quote, crazy Stormy Daniels deal, after saying he knew nothing about any payment. Prosecutors then using the president's own words from TV today in court just minutes later. We have breaking news coming in a short time ago about the former police officer who authorities say murdered 12 people and then raped at least 40. Tonight, they have now revealed how they caught him and audio of the recordings, the messages he would later leave for his alleged victims. The refinery explosion, the pictures coming in, multiple injuries, schools shut down, mandatory evacuations. The deputy shot and killed. Tonight, the reward as the manhunt is now underway. And just hours before the NFL draft, the major prospect and the racially offensive tweets that just surfaced.
This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a Thursday night. And we begin with Bill Cosby, found guilty. The actor and comedian, once known as America's Dad, found guilty on all charges today. His head down, taking deep breaths after the verdict, then his outburst in court. He was accused of drugging and assaulting a woman at his Philadelphia home. Prosecutors in this retrial were allowed to have 5 other women testify to bolster Andrea Constand's allegations. Many of those accusers breaking down after the verdict. Tonight here, this question: could Cosby now spend the rest of his life behind bars? ABC's Lindsay Davis was in the courtroom.
A stunning fall from grace tonight for Bill Cosby, who emerged from the courtroom with his head down. The man once dubbed America's Dad, found guilty on all 3 counts of aggravated indecent assault. A jury of 12 deciding unanimously that the 80-year-old comedian drugged and sexually assaulted Andrea Constand at his Pennsylvania home in 2004. Constand, with a huge smile, hugging supporters and other accusers, overcome by tears, embracing each other. As he was escorted out of the courthouse, Cosby raised his cane in response to supporters, while others jeered, one person shouting, "Rapist."
You're a pervert! Don't wait to us!
His lawyers vowed to appeal.
We are very disappointed by the verdict. We don't think Mr. Cosby is guilty of anything, and the fight is not over.
But for Victoria Valentino, one of the Cosby accusers in court today, it was all about justice.
You could feel the electricity in the air, and when they said verdict, guilty. Oh my God, unbelievable, unbelievable.
Lily Bernard, another Cosby accuser, has been in court every single day for the retrial and his first trial last spring.
When I looked at that jury, there's this one young black man on that jury who I looked upon as my son, and I know the disappointment that he felt in looking at a beloved black male iconic father figure and being able to yet render a guilty verdict. I thank him.
It was a bombshell verdict from 7 men and 5 women. Upon hearing the first guilty announced, Cosby put his head down. By the time of the second and third guilty, his entire upper body folded on top of itself. Several people gasped, while 3 Cosby accusers sobbed and were ultimately escorted out of the courtroom. Cosby later lashed out, cursing at the district attorney when he argued Cosby should get no bail, that he could flee in his plane. Cosby saying, "He doesn't have a plane, you expletive." The guilty verdict comes after the previous trial resulted in a hung jury. One of the biggest differences this time around, of the more than 60 Cosby accusers, a total of 6, including Constand, testified in this trial compared to only 2 last year. Just this week, his wife of 54 years, Camille, right at his side walking into court, just as she was in his 2014 interview with the Associated Press, where Cosby refused to address the allegations.
I don't talk about it, and I would appreciate it if it was scuttled.
The comedian, loved and adored by so many as Dr. Huxtable, Fat Albert, and the face of Jell-O pudding, a convicted felon tonight who will now have to register as a sex offender.
And Lindsay Davis with us tonight. She's covered both of these trials. And Lindsay, when do we expect Bill Cosby to be sentenced?
Sentencing will take place within the next 60 to 90 days, David, and the judge told Cosby he is not to leave this county. He has handed over his passport, David.
All right, Lindsay Davis, thank you. And let's get right to ABC's chief legal analyst, Dan Abrams, also with us tonight. And Dan, the bottom line here, what amount of prison time is likely? Could he spend the rest of his life behind bars?
Talking about 3 counts here, up to 10 years on each. So in theory, 30 years. In reality, all 3 will probably be considered one incident concurrent, meaning up to 10 years total. The defense is probably going to ask for no jail time. Prosecutors will ask for at least 10 years. I'd expect somewhere in the 5 to 10 year range.
But he does turn 81 next month. In the meantime, they say they'll appeal, but on what grounds?
Most importantly, they're going to say these 5 additional accusers who are allowed to testify in this case never should have been allowed to testify.
All right, Dan Abrams, our thanks to you and to Lindsay Davis tonight. In the meantime, we turn to an outburst of a different kind, not in court, but on live cable TV. President Trump calling into Fox and Friends and lashing out today, admitting for the first time that his personal attorney, Michael Cohen, did represent him in the, quote, crazy Stormy Daniels deal. A short time later, prosecutors were using the president's own words from that TV appearance in court. Here's ABC senior White House correspondent Cecilia Vega tonight.
President Trump on the phone with Fox and Friends.
Thank you so much for being with us, Mr. President.
Well, good morning.
Sounding like a man who needed to vent. And for 29 minutes, that is exactly what he did. Today, for the first time, he acknowledged his personal attorney and fixer Michael Cohen represented him in the Stormy Daniels matter.
He represents me like with this crazy Stormy Daniels deal. He represented me, and you know, from what I see, he did absolutely nothing wrong. There were no campaign funds going into this.
Just 3 weeks ago, the president said he knew nothing about Cohen's $130,000 hush payment to the porn star.
Did you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels?
Today, the president also distanced himself from Cohen, now under criminal investigation, his apartment, hotel, and office raided by the FBI.
I would say probably the big thing is his business, and they're looking at something having to do with his business. I have nothing to do with his business. I can tell you, he's a good guy.
But isn't his business your attorney, Mr. President?
Well, I have many, just so you understand, I have many attorneys. I have attorneys. Sadly, I have so many attorneys you wouldn't even believe.
In court today, a prosecutor jumped on that comment, saying if Cohen barely represents the president, then attorney-client privilege should not be a big part of the case. The president also using the Fox phone call to once again blast his own Justice Department.
You look at the corruption at the top of the FBI, it's a disgrace. And our Justice Department, which I try and stay away from, but at some point I won't.
And he railed against his fired FBI director, contradicting James Comey's memos, which said the president did not spend the night in Moscow for a Miss Universe pageant.
I went to Russia for a day or so, a day or two, because I own the Miss Universe pageants. He said I didn't stay there at night. Of course I stayed there. I stayed there a very short period of time, but of course I stayed. Well, his memo said I left immediately. I never said that.
Among the other topics he wanted to get off his chest, the First Lady's job well done on this week's state dinner. But then, on her birthday, this admission.
Maybe I didn't get her so much. I'll tell you what, she has done. I got her a beautiful card. You know, I'm very busy to be running out looking for presents, okay? But I got a beautiful card. There's some beautiful flowers.
He had a lot to say. So much, the Fox and Friends host had a tough time getting him to stop talking.
We could talk to you all day, but it looks like you have a million things to do. But I hope you could join us again, Mr. President.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Cecilia Vega with us live from the White House tonight. Cecilia, back to Michael Cohen in court today. He and the president, as we know, are trying to protect much of what was seized by the FBI. The president saying that even he would pore through some of this evidence. The judge delivering a major decision today, though.
David, the judge appointed a special master, someone called a special master. This is essentially an independent lawyer who is a former judge who's now going to pore over all of these items that were collected. Ultimately, she will decide what, if anything, is attorney-client privileged information. A small victory here for Michael Cohen, David.
All right, Cecilia Vega, good to have you back with us tonight. We also have a major development this evening in the case of the former police officer under arrest. As we reported here, authorities believe he committed 12 murders and more than 40 rapes. Tonight, they have just revealed how they caught him all these years later. Also this evening, the audio. You will hear the phone messages authorities say he would leave for his alleged victims after the attacks. Here's ABC's Whit Johnson.
Tonight, investigators building their case against a suspected Golden State Killer, searching the home of 72-year-old Joseph James D'Angelo for items stolen from the victims.
We may be able to connect some of the burglaries that are really just linked to him based upon MO and no DNA, so that we can link some of those cases to him moving forward.
And we're learning more about how the alleged predator was captured. After trailing DeAngelo for 6 days, more than 15 officers watched as he worked inside his garage, then moving in when he walked out to the sidewalk. DeAngelo, who was home alone, appeared surprised.
Really no conversation at all. Just the only thing he really said was that he had a roast in the oven.
Tonight, some neighbors saying the man now accused of murdering 12 people and raping nearly 50 victims lived with family and had a temper.
We used to call him Freak because he used to have these tantrums out in the front. He would yell so loud that you could hear him yelling from inside the house.
Grant Gorman claims he had multiple run-ins with DeAngelo, including a threatening call over his barking dog.
If you don't shut that dog up, I'll deliver a load of death.
DeAngelo recently retired from his job at this Save Mart grocery distribution center. As a young man, he served in the Navy. And while some of the early crimes were being committed, DeAngelo was a police officer, reportedly fired in 1979 for shoplifting dog repellent and a hammer. The Golden State Killer, known for taunting his victims.
He asked in a very harsh whisper, like, "Do you want to die? Do you want me to kill your mother?"
Margaret Wardlow, believed to be the youngest, just 13 at the time. Her attacker, tying up her mother like he did the others, stacking plates on her back to make sure she wouldn't move.
This is just awful. With us, we know that Whitney, after 40 years on the run, authorities said new DNA technology had helped track down DeAngelo. That's what they've been saying. But tonight, you've just learned what it was just a couple of weeks ago that turned this case?
Yeah, David, we've just learned from multiple law enforcement sources that investigators used genealogy websites to help link DeAngelo to what was previously the unknown mystery DNA of the attacker. Now, it's not clear who in his family may have been using those websites, but it provided a critical clue in the case. David?
Incredible, a genealogy website. All right, Whit Johnson again tonight, thanks. Next to the fireworks on Capitol Hill tonight, EPA Chief Scott Pruitt facing tough questions today, among them questions about his spending of taxpayer dollars, your money. Among the items, that $43,000 secure phone booth for his office, the first-class travel. ABC's Mary Bruce on the Hill tonight with how he answered.
Do you still have the president's confidence, Administrator Pruitt?
The embattled head of the EPA, Scott Pruitt, defiant as he walked into a grilling on Capitol Hill. Inside, lawmakers let loose.
You seem to view the EPA budget as a personal slush fund.
And if I were the president, I wouldn't want your help. I'd just get rid of you.
I have nothing to hide as it relates to how I've run the agency for the past 16 months.
But again and again, Pruitt deflected blame, pointing the finger at his own staff. He says they were the ones who ordered a $43,000 private phone booth for his office.
I was not involved in the approval of the $43,000, and if I'd known about it, Congressman, I would have refused it.
That seems a bit odd. If something happens in my office, especially to the degree of $43,000, I know about it before, during, and after. But anyway.
He claims it was his security team that decided he should fly first class and not coach. One Republican congressman trying to help.
But it's not illegal.
It is not.
It may look bad, but it's not illegal.
Pruitt was also pressed on whether he authorized hefty pay raises for two longtime aides, even after the White House refused to approve them. Pruitt previously said he knew nothing about it, but now he acknowledges he did know about one of those raises.
That decision was made by my
Yes or no?
staff.
Did you authorize him?
There are delegations giving him that authority.
So that's a yes. Sarah Greenwald, one of the aides who received a substantial raise, stated that you were aware of and supported the raises. Was that true?
I think with respect to the raises, what's
Yet was that true?
Was not aware of the amount, nor was I.
Not the amount. Were you aware of the raises?
I was not aware of the amount.
After 6 hours of testimony, the one question still unanswered.
Mr. Administrator, why not take responsibility? Doesn't the buck stop with you? This is your agency, Mr. Pruitt.
Mary Bruce asking the questions. No answer there, though. Mary Bruce on the Hill tonight again for us. And Mary, Scott Pruitt says he's the target of people trying to undermine President Trump. How's the White House now responding to his testimony?
David, sources inside the White House tell us they admit this was a tough day for Pruitt, but they say he was largely speaking to an audience of one, the president. And tonight, it's his support that matters most. David.
Mary Bruce with us again tonight. Thank you, Mary. And also from Capitol Hill tonight, the Senate has now